Which game will fill the void in my soul today? Nintendo, 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 Nintendo. Ubisoft? When I think of some of my favorite game developers, some names that come to mind would include Retro Studios, HAL Laboratory, id Software, Nintendo. Ubisoft is probably down by the guys who made the Burger King games. So then why do I find myself watching Ubisoft's full E3 press conference year after year after year? It's because they might announce the one game I actually want. Rayman, the limbless platforming wonder. While modern Ubisoft specializes in all things not Rayman, back in the day, Rayman was their bread and butter. Rayman's success is what put Ubisoft on the map. Without Rayman, a lot of Ubisoft's other properties probably wouldn't exist. So while Ubisoft is set on ignoring him in the modern era, I think it's the perfect time to shine a spotlight on a game that saw the origin of a platforming legend. We start off with a quick cinematic giving us a quick overview of the game's plot.
The evil Mr. Darks
Has stolen the
great Protoon,
throwing off the balance of the world. Now the lands are inhabited by freaks and the peaceful Electoons have been captured and encaged. Now it is up to Rayman to free the Electoons, defeat the
evil Mr. Dark,
and restore peace and stability. It's a nice short intro that sets up the plot, the tone, and the cartoonish art style the game is going for. We start off our journey in the Dream Forest, and I am immediately struck by the game's fantastic art direction. The environments are so vivid and lively, you can hardly tell the world's in complete chaos. Everything looks like a hand-painted cartoon. It's just so well done. Stylization really is the key to timeless art direction. Like seriously, this game is older than I am and it still holds up better visually. The overall aesthetic of the first world is still your typical grassland, but definitely has enough mystical whimsy to stand out. Getting started, we have our usual platforming affairs, jumping around, collecting shiny objects, and then we encounter our first enemy. And we can't do anything, because base Rayman is essentially a vegetable who can jump. Throughout the game, you'll run into Betilla the fairy, who will slowly equip you with your full moveset. After a few sections of platforming and avoiding enemies, she will grant Rayman the ability to throw his fist. Of course, being limbless, Rayman's punches have extreme range, especially if you charge it up. Now you can actually take out enemies as you go. Or at least you can try, because the game loves placing enemies that are out of your reach. Additionally, some of the enemies have incredibly wonky or inconsistent hurt boxes, making it feel like a gamble every time you engage an enemy. All those complaints aside, the move is still incredibly fun to use and satisfying to land, especially with the amazing sound design. Early on, I'm already impressed with a lot of the level design I'm seeing. The game takes a simple concept like the plums for example, and goes so far with it. Before the end of the second level, we're granted the ability to hang. Another excellent addition. With more abilities at our disposal, we can more thoroughly explore the levels for their various secrets. If you find the magician hanging about, you can give him some of your tings to attempt a challenge level, which upon completion, you'll get a 1-up. These are usually very difficult, so you'll probably have better luck just finding 1-ups in the actual levels. A little more in line with traditional power-ups, you'll find the special fist power-ups and the health pickups. I was never really sure what the fist power-ups were accomplishing, but according to the manual they increase the power and speed of Rayman's fist. But the main collectibles of course are the Electoon cages. Each level contains 6 of these, and they can range from being out in the open to incredibly cryptic. More on that later. Ending off the first world, we have a few run-ins with Mosquitos. These are solid boss fights, presenting a fair challenge that utilizes Rayman's initially limited moveset. After the fight with Pinky here, you actually befriend him and soar through the air. Cute little continuity there. Though after befriending Pinky, it's kinda strange that he leaves the red one sulking. After the battle, Betilla offers us the power to swing on these purple lumps. Kinda situational, but I'll take it. Next up, Bandland, an entire world made of music notes, bongos, trumpets, and whatever this is. Oh look, ice physics! The level design varies from clever use of the instruments to just whatever the developers felt like. It might be my complete lack of musical experience, but this level is kicking my ass. I didn't make it too far before I was being presented with my first game over. Luckily, the game offers 5 continues, allowing you to pick yourself up right where you left off. I was caught a little off guard by the game's increasing difficulty, but things should be fine from here on out. The difficulty spike in Bandland is insane. The enemies are ridiculously hard to kill, everything is trying to kill you, platforming gets incredibly precise, and sometimes the level design just says, "Hello, we hate you." Remember the escape sequence from Metroid 1? Imagine that, but with ice physics. How is anyone expected to do this? The game's saving grace ends up being the game's 99 lives cheat. The cheat varies for the game's different versions. I'm playing the American release of the PS1 version. So let's see what the sequence is. So we have to pause the game, hold L2, R1, L1, and R2. Then we release the buttons in the following order. L1, L2, R2, R1. Next we have to press circle. Finally we hold left on the D-pad, circle, square, triangle, and once again release the buttons in the following order. Left, triangle, square, circle. Got it? Good. Now that we have full health and 99 mistakes ahead of us, we can trial and error our way through some trials and tribulations. Oh, thank God, a checkpoint. Each checkpoint sees Rayman posing behind his cutout to get his picture taken. Once again, little details like this are what make Rayman's presentation so charming. In the DSi release, the game actually takes your photo with the system's built-in camera. Seeing these checkpoints is so relieving, and the shocking lack of them is quite the opposite. Some levels are gracious enough to give you a few, but others will give you excruciatingly long platforming gauntlets with absolutely zero. Yeah, you don't say. Oh wow, helicopter hair, which can help me correct my jumps. Definitely couldn't have used that earlier. But in all seriousness, this does alleviate a lot of the stress of pinpoint platforming. Next, we are thrown into one of the most irritating side-scrolling sections I've ever played. If so much as a hair on Rayman's head touches the edge of the screen, he's dead. Combine this with Rayman's zoomed-in camera and some obnoxious enemy placement, and there you have it. A headache, ladies and gentlemen. To end Bandland's crescendo of pain is Mr. Sax. The boss has 2 phases, the chase and the standard battle. It's an enjoyable fight and probably the highlight of Bandland. Take that as you will. While I'm still talking about Bandland, I might as well mention the music. Rayman has an absolutely gorgeous soundtrack, whether it's relaxing, exciting, or just environmental. It's all so well done. Moving on to the Blue Mountains. Luckily, the difficulty doesn't ramp up much here. Just a similar lineup of annoying enemies and obstacles. I do really like these big statue enemies that try to chase you down. Screw the small ones though, those guys suck. Again, having the helicopter ability makes everything a lot less stressful. Despite a few hiccups, I was able to make it through the initial stages relatively easily. Eventually, you'll make it to this hippie dude who offers you his special formula. I know what you're thinking, and yes, it lets you fly indefinitely. There are actually a few different stages that give you special abilities. These can range from fun and inventive to just annoying. The super helicopter is definitely the most notable though. To control Rayman's flight, you have to repeatedly mash the jump button, which really isn't the most precise control method for flying through tight pathways. I definitely think holding X to ascend would have been a better idea, essentially how flying works in other Rayman titles. The best section is where you use Rayman's hair to cut these ropes. Absolute creative genius here. Hasn't been long, and we're already nearing the end of the world. I actually noticed my life counter is running low, so I'm just gonna... Now onto the boss, Mr. Stone. You need to punch the stone pillar to swing it into his face. As usual, the game does a good job with the boss fights. Definitely can take a while to get their patterns down, but when you do, they're a lot of fun. Before we leave, we are greeted by Betilla once again, who gives us the power to run. Betilla, once again, your timing is impeccable. Down the Blue Mountains, we find ourselves at Pitcher City, a world made of art and utensils. First impressions? They found a way to implement ice physics again. What is their obsession with shoehorning in ice physics in every world? Rayman is a relatively heavy character as far as platformers go, so when you lose control of his momentum, you are not getting him back. This is nothing but frustrating. Why must you keep doing this to me? Yeah, but anyways, the theming is good. The run ability definitely picks up the pace of the game a bit, at least when the game isn't deciding the pace for you. The world is a bit of a difficulty spike. Some sections are fairly straightforward, but others are some of the most unforgiving gauntlets the game has to offer. There's another super helicopter section, and remember when I complained about the tight pathways? Well, all that's left now is the bosses. Now, if there's one thing these past worlds have done well, it would be the boss fights. Son of a... This Viking crew, they're alright, just definitely not as fun as the previous bosses. But nothing can compare to the pain and misery brought upon by Space Mama. This garbage excuse for a mother figure has some of the most broken hurt boxes and longest attack phases of any boss I've ever played. After countless attempts of the attacks not working, I was done. I'm not willing to sit through this 2-minute cutscene any longer. I started using the 99 lives code to refill my health until I took her down. Now I own this cool shirt. With another headache, I head to the Cave of Scops. We're nearing the end of the game now, so as you should probably expect, everything is trying to kill you. Not much to say about the caves. The level aesthetic kind of blends together with the Blue Mountains for me. You meet Joe, he's kind of cool. He gives you a firefly so you can travel through the dark section of this cave. That's not very fun. Oh, how about this fish with Rayman's big nose? That's just not right. I don't know exactly what it is, but this world just kind of dragged on for me. Maybe death fatigue was finally setting in, I don't know. The boss fight with Mr. Scops is pretty fun once you figured out what to do, so Space Mama really is just the outlier here. So now that we've completed all the main levels, there's still one mechanic we need to talk about. Now I know I've already complained endlessly about this game's difficulty, but this Popin mechanic takes what's already a difficult game and often turns it into an unfair one. Whenever you hear, something has happened, there's no telling exactly what. It could be an item, a cage, a platform, or in most cases, an obstacle or enemy. Since Rayman's camera is so zoomed in, enemies and obstacles either appear off screen so you can't tell what's going on, or appear right in front of you, giving you little to no time to react. There are many moments where it feels like the devs are trying to troll the player. And like, seriously? This is what I expect from a 5-year-old in Mario Maker, not professional game developers that have already proven they can do amazing level design. It's one thing to make your game difficult, but it's another to spit on the player's grave. As I said before, the Popin mechanic also applies to the cages, making some of them incredibly hard to find. Let's take an example from Pitcher City. The cage is up here, but as you can see, there's no platform. To get this platform to appear, we need to touch this exact spot on the map. There's no rhyme or reason why, that's just where you need to go. So now you go all the way up there and find, there's no cage. Well, silly, that's because you have to go all the way over here, stand right here, to make the cage appear. Then travel back again, and break open the cage. Why? Now these shouldn't be that big of a deal, as they are optional collectibles. Who keeps letting you in here? To unlock the final stage, you need to free every Electoon in the game. There's no any percent here, it's all or nothing. Going back to the Dream Forest was fine. It was actually cool replaying these levels with Rayman's full range of abilities. But there is no way I'm playing through all of this again. I just don't have enough ice packs. So we're gonna need to use a password to access the final level. Mr. Dark sits atop the Candy Chateau. We start off riding a frying pan down these mounds of ice cream and chocolate, avoiding caramel pits. Mr. Dark makes some last-ditch attempts to try to stop us from reaching his lair. He creates a Dark Rayman clone that follows right behind us, imitating our every move. If you've ever played the Cosmic Clone levels from Mario Galaxy 2 or 3D Land, it's basically that, except, you know, many years prior. Avoiding the clones in 3D is one thing, but it's a much steeper challenge in 2D. You have to meticulously plan out your route to get around Dark Rayman. The whole sequence is really well done. In the next sequence, Mr. Dark will invert your left and right controls, which is confusing for a few seconds, but once you adapt, it's really nothing too interesting. And yes, the ice cream has ice physics, because the devs really couldn't help themselves. Mr. Dark then makes Rayman run uncontrollably, making the game into an auto runner. That was some killer foreshadowing. Right before you reach Mr. Dark's lair, he takes away your ability to throw your fist, making Rayman completely helpless until the Electoons quite literally lend you a hand. In one final act of desperation, Mr. Dark sends these new amalgamations of his minions at us. Not much to say about these guys, as they're mostly simple asset flips from previous boss fights, but it's worth noting that you have to beat them all in one go, making it quite a final challenge. What's odd though is once Mr. Dark disappears at the beginning of the fight, you never see him again. You just don't get to fight Mr. Dark himself. Well, with Mr. Dark finally, defeated, peace and tranquility are finally restored to Rayman's world. The citizens cry out, and that is the original Rayman, a game I have a lot of mixed feelings towards. Rayman absolutely nails all aspects of its presentation. The art style, the characters, the animation, the worlds, the music are all fantastic. On the other hand, you have the game design, which falters in many areas. The level design has moments of brilliance, but it's often deteriorated by an obsession with being difficult. Some mechanics just don't work right, and some should just go away. I think it says a lot that I had to use multiple cheats and passwords just to play to the end of the game. I'll always have a soft spot for this game. I mean, I kinda have to. It's the origin of not only one of my favorite characters, but one of my favorite game franchises. At the end of the day, this just isn't the Rayman game for me. Luckily, we got a lot more to go through. I am gonna call a priest.